Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the Winnipeg Sports Weekly podcast. As always, my name is Scott Knight.
I'm Victor Selby.
And it's good to have you all back.
Been a rough week in Winnipeg sports.
It's the second time in a row we've had to say that. And
I think we opened with that last week.
We opened with that last week. People are going to think they're on the wrong episode.
No.
It's, you can't imagine it really being much worse. Some ups and downs. But mostly negatives. Yeah. Mostly negatives. Are we the problem?
Yeah.
Maybe it's us. Ever since the podcast started, man. Maybe, we could be the issue here.
We were making these plans heading into the season, and we were talking about, oh, man, these teams are so good, too. Perfect time to launch this. Going to be elite.
Yeah. Performing well below average. We could start it off, I think.
Yeah, Bombers or Sea Bears? Where do you want to start?
I want to go Bombers.
Bombers it is.
Sea Bears will have their own section, but the Bombers I can talk about for a long time because now the second week in a row in which they have tremendously underperformed, albeit definitely shorthanded against the Ottawa Red Blacks. But still, pretty unacceptable performance on an away game that they should still, without a doubt, be winning or at least competing in for the better majority of the game, and they really didn't. Shout out to Drew Brown. He looks as good as ever, and he played a solid game against us.
Nothing but happy for him. I have no beef with Drew Brown. For sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are some questions that you can see online from people. The Drew Brown versus Collaros question, which is, I'm gonna say, I'm pretty staunchly in support of the whole keep Collaros. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Drew Brown is fantastic, but he's still unpolished. I mean, he's going to have a great future. I do hope one day he comes back to Winnipeg because he's clearly going to be a guy who's very talented for a very long time. But you can still see it there with Collaros, even in these first two games where he hasn't played particularly well. He's had a lot of good, showings. I think our biggest problem is just our offensive line right now. It's absolutely atrocious. You can't get more than, it's a good set of downs if Collaros is averaging more than 3 or 4 seconds before he's forced to throw the ball away.
Yeah, as far as things I'm worried about, it begins with the offensive line. No question about it. While there's a ton of you could basically reference almost anything else as another negative. Yeah. Stuff like injuries, that have really affected the defense, Obviously, I'm a little worried about that. You don't know how long these injuries are going to last. Are they going to be persistent? But, there's not a lot you can do about that. And I do have reasonable confidence that, if we had a healthy defense or, if we get some of these guys back, we're probably going to be okay. I actually thought the defensive line looked okay.
It did.
I think it's looked all right the first few weeks. I'm really impressed by Devin Adams. I know the Bombers loved him out of training camp. He's been really good, sacking both of those games. Willie Jefferson obviously got on the board with a sack. The defensive line was okay, but yeah, the O-line is my concern. Obviously, Collaros has not been at his best. His stats, even though eye test wise, I actually thought he looked a little better this week. His stats are actually a little worse, I think.
Yeah.
But that offensive line, boy, he just did not have any time. It just felt like they were just overwhelming us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It was brutal.
I agree with what you said about the defensive line. In general, that first week against Montreal, you could tell how kind of young and inexperienced they were. Sure. They didn't really get much pressure on Fajardo, but you don't expect them to when you're playing against the defending Grey Cup champs there. And that was one of the reasons why Fajardo was able to have such a great game. But in this second game, you can tell Ottawa definitely doesn't have quite as strong of an offensive line because guys were able to get there and give him problems, which is nice to see at least. And hopefully they continue to develop and get better. But our offensive line, I'm struggling right now to think of a single positive thing to say about them. I understand that it's our defensive line's the ones who got hurt a bunch, right?
Yeah, our defensive line is barely it's
and they still look much better. Our O line is presumably at near full strength, and they just really don't look good. I think probably my biggest beef outside of that comes from I'm hesitant to say coaching because it's really just
because it's the Bombers. It's like we just haven't had that concern for so long.
I haven't had that problem, and I don't really have a problem with O'Shea overall, of course, because I know how fantastic of a coach he is. but I think he maybe needs to put his foot down and be a little bit more involved in the offensive strategy at times, because I don't know what Buck Pierce is cooking up, but it is not hitting these first 2 weeks, man. That guy is, it's our offense looks stagnant, and we have the guys to have a very fluid, very good offense overall. Yep. So you have to wonder, it's like, what are some of these play calls? And that's probably a pretty, I think, significant part of the struggle right now, is just we don't look like we have any options that people haven't seen before, right? Yep. And we have so many dynamic players like Strevler, Oliveira when he's back, several good receivers, guys who you almost forgot were part of the team until a certain point this season. I forgot Dalton Schoen even existed until I saw him make a catch in like the third quarter. It was the third quarter of the game against the Redblacks. I remember
thinking it too. I was like,
I forgot Dalton Schoen is a Winnipeg Blue Bomber. I did not see, and that's not really, on him, obviously, because he's clearly not open. Collaros, there was a few times where he was able to escape the pocket, put his front foot forward, looks downfield, and he's got nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, so these guys are all very talented receivers. It's something about the routes that they're running that is not allowing them to get open. And I'm just going to say it right now. I know the rain delay sucked, but you got 3 downs to go 7 yards, and you pass all 3 times? Why did we even sign Strevler? His whole thing is running. He wasn't even on the field for any of those plays. And it's raining. It's pouring rain. Put the ball on the ground.
He's the guy who I'm blown away at, like, how is he happy right now? Because Chris Strevler, like, obviously, like, we know what he can do. We know what he can't do. But this guy is a great runner of the football at the quarterback position. He can do a ton of stuff. The reason we signed him is because he gives us options. We can do stuff with him, whether that's like wild card stuff, multi-quarterback things, like all kinds of stuff we can do, like, whatever it is. And like, has this guy done anything other than short yardage? Not his fault, obviously. Chris, since you're, of course, watching this.
Yeah, he's definitely, this is what he's
not blaming you at all. It's just like, I feel like
he
wasn't brought in to just be a short yardage quarterback.
No, and no offense to Chris Strevler, Dakota Prukop was probably a better for pushing the 2 yards. I think Prukop's probably better, but that's not why we signed the guy. And it is the perfect time to get Strevler involved in this offense with Oliveira out.
Quarterback struggling.
Our quarterback's struggling. Yep. We don't have a quarterback that's currently playing very well.
Yep.
No hate to Collaros, because again, I don't really think it's all on him.
He's probably going to be fine.
Yes, yeah, but we don't have a strong quarterback right now. Our MOP, I'm going to call him MOP running back because he deserved it. But our MOP
at least.
Yes, our most outstanding Canadian running back is sidelined. And I'll give tons of credit to Johnny Augustine because he actually looked quite good on a few of those plays against the Redblacks.
Great touchdown run.
It was
by Johnny A.
But exactly why are we relying upon Johnny Augustine to be our main source of offense when we have Chris Strevler sitting on the bench collecting dust, especially in a play like that where you have 3 downs to go 7 yards to win yourself a football game that you were barely in for the majority of it? The Bombers would have been so lucky to get away with that win, and they were within 10 yards of doing it, and ultimately it was play calling that didn't get them over the line.
Yeah, no, and I have to agree with you. And yeah, like the reason the offensive line is still my biggest concern, because, just because like I have confidence we're going to work out most of this stuff. That line, like, obviously it's a little different from last year. We lost Jamarcus Hardrick. We all know how sensational Jamarcus Hardrick is. And then the other guy we lost is Jeff Gray, who I think most people weren't super impressed by his performance last year. Obviously, I don't believe he's been picked up by another CFL team this year. I don't think so. So I think like we all knew Hardrick was going to hurt. And last year, we didn't have the best offensive line. But now that you look at it, after our struggles the first 2 games, it gets a little more scary. Like, you look, Stanley Bryant, we all know how good he is. He's one of the best offensive linemen in the history of this league. He just turned 38 years old. Yeah. Like, that's, as good as he is, I understand offensive linemen, you can usually get some extra length out of them. Like, guys like Andrew Whitworth for the Rams, he played, I think he was like 40, 42 or something like that. They won the Super Bowl. Like, cool, but you're still 38-year-old man playing up against like 26-year-olds.
I was going to say the line,
like, that's still a thing.
You can get longevity out of a line, but ultimately your best linemen are typically going to be younger players. I mean, they're just on average going to be stronger, more agile, and just better overall. So yeah, I don't know why the Bombers are, now for the, 5th or 6th year in the row trying to lean on the exact same core when these guys are just not in the prime of their career anymore. And it seems like they've done very little to try and, strengthen when we, what's the point in us having one of the best quarterbacks in the league if we can't put any protection around him, right?
Oh yeah. And so many people are quick to say, like, quick to criticize the offensive line, and I feel like a lot of people don't get how much like, chemistry you need to build with the line and things like that's definitely a thing. But we were kind of supposed to have a head start on that. Like, Lofton had obviously been with the Bombers before. Eli had been he's been on the roster for a couple of years now. I kind of thought that we all were gonna have a bit of a jump start on some of the reworking, knowing where guys are, all of that. It's been brutal, and I just find myself thinking, like, where is Gabe Wallace right now? A guy we picked in the 2nd round of the draft. I thought looked good when we got a chance to see him. We know they're super high on him because he's in every reel that the Bombers post. Yeah. It's, every question that they ask the players, like, there's Gabe Wallace because he's a great personality. O'Shea had nothing but good things to say about him. The offensive line's struggling. Let's give him a shot. He's like 23 years old. Let's see what he's got. I just feel like, why are we not trying something? We picked him in the 2nd round of the CFL draft. Let's do it. Let's see it.
Yeah, he can't possibly be any more of a negative on the team than we are currently seeing anyways. So a very, very disappointing start.
Yeah.
Ultimately wasn't super unhappy with the defense. We're in a weird spot with the defense right now where the D-line looks good, as is kind of always the case. Yeah. Pretty much whenever Willie Jefferson is playing, the D-line's going to look at least decent because he's always a threat to create pressure just by himself.
Like, he might be the best player in the CFL. Like, I don't think that's a bad take.
I think if you put him on the defensive side of it, like you're saying, defensive side of the ball, absolutely. Offensive players obviously always get more credit, but
just like being good relative to your position, it might be Willie Jefferson. He's unbelievable.
He is.
Like, you can even see in this Ottawa game, like, the amount of energy they give him. It's like, Devin Adams has been impressive for sure. Cool. He's like next to Willie Jefferson. Like, there's so much energy that goes to Willie that it's like, man, he's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's overall the D-line looks quite good. The secondary, I can't really get a bearing on how I feel for them. I mean, they've had it really just comes down to any couple, pretty much every quarter they seem to be throwing something new out there. They really don't know whether or not they're going to be a good secondary this year, and I don't know what to say about them. I mean, they looked solid for, I'd say, about half of that Montreal game before they proceeded to let an 80-yard bomb go completely unmarked to the best player. To the absolute best receiver on the Montreal offense, and I don't think anyone was within 20 yards of Philpott. He was just completely gone. And that kind of blown coverage just can't happen. And it's the same thing with the Ottawa game where, they look solid. They're batting down some balls. They look like they know what they're doing. And I'm not entirely sure if it comes down, again, to the defensive play calling now, or if it really just is that these guys are going to be inconsistent. They'll be good some days, and then just absolutely horrible on some other ones. I really don't get it. There's a lot of confusion, it looks like, between the corners and the defensive backs on who's got coverage on particular routes, especially that Montreal was running. That was probably the biggest one down the left side of the field. I forget who it was, but I know Evan Holm was like dropping in to try and cover one of the receivers, and then him and a DB were just doubling the exact same guy while the outside receiver just blew past him on the line for about 35 yards. That kind of confusion. I know we're early in the season, but I mean, it can't be happening. You had preseason games. It's the second game, and it's not against a particularly loaded offense or anything. The Ottawa Red Blacks aren't a team that should be, they don't have Tom Brady out there. I know Drew Brown is good, but it's not like he's, going to be winning any, probably not going to be winning the Grey Cup this year. Knock on wood. Hey, good for him if he does, if the Red Blacks pull that out. But I just don't see it happening. They're not a particularly amazing offense. But
I think they were predicted to be the worst team in the league, or pretty close to it, and just in the betting odds, like before the season started.
Absolutely. That being said, we were predicted to be favorites, to win it all, and
doesn't mean anything.
No, I would imagine that's probably changed since then. So,
yeah.
Very weird spot for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Is it crazy to say, however, that I think Jamison Sheehan has been our best player this year? His punts look fantastic,
He's been
man.
Great.
The punts
are great.
Punters don't get any love. They really don't. But he has been literally all of his punts are very, very well placed. And we are so bad in so many other regards right now and so inconsistent that he genuinely has been the only consistently good. Normally I'd say Castillo, but against Montreal, Castillo was horrible.
Yeah.
He did pick it up last game against the Red Blacks. I don't think had a miss against the Red Blacks. No,
I think we can, whatever that shenanigans was with the chip footballs, like whatever.
Yeah,
that's probably it. Castillo's probably fine.
It's over now, hopefully.
No big deal.
Looks like he's probably going to be fine. He made a couple solid from close to 40. I think over 40 on one of them, like a 42-yarder.
I think so, yeah.
Looks back to normal. Let's hope that the offense can now figure it out and get going. And I know, did we re-sign Chris Smith? Who we re-signed?
We did.
Preseason returner.
Yeah, we signed Chris Smith to the practice roster. I think Myron Mitchell has struggled a little bit in the return game. Obviously, we've criticized the offensive line so much, so I don't know how much better the special teams blocking has been. Gonna be real, I'm not sure that I'm intelligent enough to actually know how well the special teams are blocking.
Oh yeah,
Just completely 100. Just keep it 100 with you fans there. Like I don't know that I know that, but nonetheless, I don't feel like he's been super effective in the return game. I do think it's worth giving it to Smith. I did hear that when they cut him, it was injury related, so that made me think he was maybe going to be out longer than 2 weeks. But
he seems to be clearly.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see in practice this week. Like, is he taking any returns? Like, is that something that we're doing? We're just kind of. There's a lot of updates we're gonna have to get. Obviously, we did hear Haba and Fox have both been put onto the 6-game injured list. Haba in particular, that did not look good. If you guys haven't seen it, Darren Bombing of Bonfire Sports did a really good breakdown of the Haba injury play on Twitter or X, and it does not look good. I'll tell you, like it reeks of out for the season to me. And considering that a few people pointed it out when the Bombers released their depth chart, I think we only had 6 D-line guys for this game against Ottawa, which is very low, by the way. Like, obviously 4 are on the field at any given time. Generally, having 6 total is not something that typically happens.
Yeah.
We lost 2 guys during that. It's it's gonna get interesting. We did sign a D lineman as well. I would expect he gets promoted from the practice roster. Probably someone else. Guys, like we're pretty patched up here at week 3. Heading into a game against BC, who a lot of people picked to win the Grey Cup. This is a game that I think that even if the Bombers were looking really good, we'd expect that we could lose that game.
Oh, absolutely.
Considering how bad we've been looking and how good BC looked yesterday, I can't say I'm the most confident man in the world going into this Friday's game at Princess Auto Stadium.
Just in case we are the problem, my money is absolutely on the BC Lions.
Yeah,
the BC Lions are going to win this game, and either I'm going to be right or I'm going to be pleasantly surprised at the product that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers put on the field, or the BC Lions are just going to look absolutely horrible. Guess you never know until it happens, but my money would be on the BC Lions to take this one. It's brutal to have them in week 3, but that's exactly why the Red Blacks were a game we had to win, and we had to bounce back, and we had to look good by the end of that game, so we actually had a chance against the Lions. But unless they come out looking like a completely brand new team, I absolutely have the Lions winning that one, which is disappointing. I obviously don't like to be negative about it, but let's look at it from a realistic perspective. Against a team like that, very skeptical that they're going to put out a performance magically that's good enough to beat, I'd say, probably the top team in the CFL right now.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to see. Obviously, Kenny Lawler will not play in that game. I would say it's reasonable to expect Brady Oliveira will play. Of course, we did I think most of us kind of expected him to play this week. Kind of a surprise. Like, even though he didn't practice, I think a lot of people expected him to, practice maybe the final day before, do the walkthrough day, and then probably start. But I think since they gave him a week off, I feel like they might have foolishly thought, week competition, our star guy's injured, give him a break, he'll be good for week 3. I like to think that's the case. Hopefully we get Oliveira back, and hopefully somebody comes back on the defensive line. I do know that Kyle Sampson, another draft pick we made out of UBC, I know he's been on the 1-game injured list. He's supposed to be back soon. So I would expect, there's a very good chance he plays, a significant number of snaps next week, considering just how beaten up our D-line has been.
Absolutely, yeah. And if there's one singular good thing to come from that Ottawa performance, it's probably the fact that Brady Oliveira did not play, and as you had said, should hopefully be healthy for this one. So that's
hopefully he recovers a lot. Like, he should hopefully look better than in week 1 would think.
Absolutely, and not really going to be hard. I mean, I think I could have.
That's reasonable. Yeah,
I probably could have came out there and put in a real spot at running back there.
Have you seen those memes where it's like, could you get 1 yard in an NFL game? And I saw that and I was like, okay, 1 yard,
a single yard. Okay, so like,
sure.
Do I get one run? Like,
okay,
is it one
maybe.
down that I get? Because like, I'm probably getting stuffed at the line if I only get one shot at it.
I don't know, but then I heard a bunch of defensive linemen talking about this, or just NFL players generally, and just saying like, no, you have no chance, like a regular person. And which obviously makes sense. Like, obviously we can do anything in the NFL or the CFL or any other level of football, really, including probably Winnipeg High School at this point. But like 1 yard, you would think 1 yard.
I would. So my assumption would be
I'd die afterwards, but
my assumption would be like, yes, I would not have the knowledge to position myself in a good spot. I would need to be pretty much babied through the whole thing and say like,
good offensive line.
I would need you need a
there
great offensive line.
Like,
the line needs to push for you anyways, right?
Yeah.
But realistically, I think that if the quarterback just points me in the direction he wants me to run and hands me the ball, I mean, if I have one shot, I'm saying maybe it's like, 50-50.
Yeah.
But if like there's a decent chance. I mean, if the line does their job, they're probably going to make a yard of space.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably get complete. I would probably just die for the yard because I'd get crushed afterwards.
You'd die, yeah.
And I really would not.
Injury guaranteed, yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. So I would just dive and just make sure I don't fumble the football after 1 yard. If I need 1 yard to do that, I'm good. I think I'm getting a yard. It's one singular yard. It's literally 3 feet.
Yeah. It's
actually, and you know what's even funnier? I think that I'm willing to say not only would I get 1 yard, I'd actually blow by any NFL defender and take it to the house.
Yeah.
I would just go the whole way.
Go on the outside, yeah.
They would assume, oh, this guy's going to dive right on the inside, and I would just blow by them, and I would take it to the house. 60, 70 yards, doesn't matter. I would beat anybody, and this was all a joke. I would get murdered.
Yeah, dude. Like, I was fortunate enough to meet Willie Jefferson a few months ago at the Canada West tournament. Obviously, you did too.
Yeah.
And I was standing next to him, like, shaking his hand and just seeing him. Like, I remember just thinking, like, the idea of being tackled by this man is just like such a terrifying visual. I like can't even begin to like. He is so large
without padding. Also, this is just him wearing like a hoodie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was just he was wearing like a hoodie and like a jacket or whatever. Coolest man, by the way, that you'll ever see
awesome
in your life.
Guy. Awesome, great guy.
Nicest guy, but just so cool. And like he was unbelievable to me. And I just kept thinking like the idea like if he tackled me right now, there's absolutely no chance I get up. Like I'm for sure in the hospital. So the idea of like 5 men of that size tackling me,
would not be pretty.
Horrible.
Yeah, absolutely awful.
Unbelievable. Like running backs are unbelievable human beings. Like the idea of like on average you're gonna get 4 or 5 yards a carry, something like that if you're like one of the better backs in the league. 4 or 5 yards. And then you get annihilated by like at least 2 of those guys. Horrible. Unbelievable.
Yeah, would not be pleasant. So no, I like my odds of maybe picking up a yard.
Quick yard.
That's about it. Actually, if I could pick up more than a single yard, I probably could be the Bombers kick returner right now, because it seems to be something that we can't do. Yeah,
we'll have to clip this and put this up on Instagram. And please comment if you think either of us could get a yard in a CFL game.
Yeah,
more than
I'm
likely,
interested.
No. Hey man, okay. So tangent aside, what about another one? Sea Bears lost today as well by 10. They're on a 4-game losing streak. Scott, how you feeling about the Sea Bears at this point?
I'm immeasurably disappointed.
Yeah.
I quite literally do not understand how you can have such a loaded roster and look so disjointed and disorganized this far into the season. How many games are we in? 7, 8 games in now?
I believe we're 3-5.
3-5. So 8 games into the season. That sounds right. Yeah, because we were 3 and...
Let me pull it up.
I'm pretty sure we were... I thought we were 3-2 at one point, and then we've lost 3 games in a row since then. So... unbelievably disappointed. Yeah, a team of this caliber, of this quality, should not struggle to create offense the way that they are.
Yep. Last in the Western Conference at 3-5 right now. Point differential of -60.
Absolutely awful. You have the two best players, the two best scorers in the CBL.
Yeah, easily
by an absolute mile.
Obviously, one of them very recent acquisition, but
yeah, and I mean he has looked good in individual scoring, but you can tell that there's not a system that's working right now. They're still putting up good numbers offensively. Offensively is not the concern. They're the exact opposite of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now.
Yep.
They have pretty decent looking offense, where the Bombers have pretty decent looking defense. But I'm convinced that I could drop a 25 bomb on the Winnipeg Sea Bears defense right now. I don't know what they're doing. That's a joke, by the way. I would not score a single point.
Yeah.
But the point is, they do look absolutely terrible. There's no strong side help coverage ever, which is just basketball 101. I don't know why that needs to be taught to these players. They are professional basketball players, and you almost never see it in the game. But also, offensively, they just don't, or sorry, defensively, they just don't really know what they're doing out there. At least it doesn't look like it. I mean, I've never seen a pick and roll be so effective against professional basketball players. Where guys are completely lost on whether or not they're covering the big or the guard. Why do we have a 7'2" player chasing a guard out on the 3-point line? I just really, I don't understand. It's a horrible, horrible look. And I mean, it looks bad fundamentally. It's not like, they're not polished and they're just getting beat by, a few minor things. The whole defense from the ground up is not being played well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say by saying that for all you fans, we never promised this was going to be an impartial podcast. We are very much fans, and we want these teams to win.
Absolutely.
We are not journalists. We are going to say what we think.
Guess I could have said that before I started talking about the defense.
No, that's fine. But just so I feel like this is the first week that we've been very heavily critical of our team. So I just wanted to preface that by saying, we never promised we'd be impartial, and I'm not about to be.
No.
The Sea Bears defense is something that look, going into this season, I very much expected the Sea Bears to be the best team in the CBL. They weren't predicted to by the betting odds, and I could not even process how that was the case. I saw the issues with roster construction. I saw we have a lot of guards. This is a kind of a small team. Where's the big man going to come? Okay, Byron Mullins, huge. Okay, then guys like Darius Days, dudes like that. Obviously, Chad Possum is coming back, guy who has experience in this league. I was like, okay, you know what? I think we're going to be able to scrape together a big rotation, and the guards, unbelievable. This is going to be something special. And I just thought that even though there were some concerns with the construction of the team, that in the end, it's basketball. There's so many good players. We're just going to kind of figure it out. And to a certain extent, that kind of has been the case offensively. With all these ball-dominant scorers, as we talked about last week, we thought that might be a concern. All these different ball-handling point guards who are, who need the ball in their hands really to be effective. Can they learn to work with each other? I think it's been hit and miss. They've been a little, there's definitely been a little bit of your turn, my turn, a little too much of that. But the defense has been baffling. They're so easily the worst defensive team in the CBL right now. Like, it's them and Brampton, who have lost 7 games in a row. It's like a revolving door getting past our guards. Like I said today in the final score post, it's like IKEA. It's just a revolving door of just go through. Like, if you want an open layup against the Sea Bears, that's very much available to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that could happen.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't really, we have the best offensive team in the league for sure. Like, whether, I don't know if we have the number 1 offense right now. It's pretty close. Like, we're scoring a lot of points.
Even if we don't, in terms of offensive rating on paper,
we're the best players.
In terms of offensive talent, it's not even close.
Yeah.
I mean,
not even close.
Yeah.
Roster wise. So, like, the defense needs to be better, and it's tough. It's a little scary. Like, you start thinking, do we have the personnel to do it? When we signed Justin Wright Foreman earlier this week, obviously it was very exciting. A guy who was the leading scorer in the league last year, 2nd in MVP voting. We knew this guy's a stud. But in order to sign him, we lost Darius Days, who decided to go do some additional like NBA workouts and the summer league and all that. Best of luck to him. But we weren't a big team, and we lost one of our bigs and brought in another, like, a small guard. Justin Wright Foreman is he's not the biggest guy in the world, and you could tell, like, we are getting absolutely burned. 3 guards out there, and let's be honest, like, as much as I love these guys, like, I love Teddy Allen, I love Wright Foreman, like, they're not defensive guards. That's just not really who they are. Teddy's big, but we don't have a ton of defensive personnel, and I think the best ones we do have are guys on the bench. I think Emmanuel Acott's been good. I think David Wenkat's been really good. Good defensive players who can really step up and guard the better players. That something needs to change. I don't know if we're going to be a great defense at any point, but this needs to not be the worst defense in the CBL.
If we're even an average defense, the Sea Bears are going to be in a fantastic spot.
We probably should win the championship if we're an average
with an average defense. My thing is, I quite literally have seen groups of just 5 guys assembled at the Y who look like they have a better understanding fundamentally of how defense works in basketball than an actual professional basketball team at the moment.
Yeah.
Everything you've said is without a doubt correct. And it's sad to say that the Sea Bears are having the exact same problem that we had coaching high school basketball this year, which is seemingly nobody knows how to rebound. I understand size-wise, very limited. So rebounding in its own is going to be difficult, but that's more so where the effort needs to come into play. Why are guys not getting position? Why are guys not boxing out as aggressively as they can? We know we're a smaller team, so you have to win with effort there. You have to just put more effort in to get to those loose balls, and it's not happening, and we are by far, I think, one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the CBL. Over the last 2 games, I think we are by far the worst in the league.
Yeah, I'd be blown away if we aren't. I haven't even checked that. I'm pretty confident.
Me neither, but from watching the game, I would be astounded if another team was worse at defensive rebounding than we are. It's almost a joke. It feels like we pick up maybe 60% of the missed shots off the board, which is an absolute travesty.
And that's what killed us today in this game in particular. Like, just like the last few games, we started roaring back in the 4th quarter, towards target score time. And what inevitably was our undoing was, they missed a shot. We gave up an offensive rebound. They hit a 3. All of a sudden, they're 3 points away from the target, and we're in trouble. It's a recurring theme, and it's been that way. It's been that way the whole year. And I don't know what the answer is. And you start thinking about rotations immediately. Byron Mullins has played in the NBA as a starter in the NBA. Why is he playing 20 minutes a game? Like, I understand that he's like 34 or something like that, 35 now. And that's fair. If that's the case, why didn't we bring in another center? And Chad Postmus is actually, I think he's been solid this year. I think he's been relatively good.
Yeah.
But he's not somebody who at this stage in his career you necessarily want playing half the game. And Byron Mullins, he hasn't been closing games. The vast majority of the time we close with like a 6'8" guy at center because we don't feel comfortable in our other options. Is Byron Mullins not playing because of age? Like, you don't want to play him that much, or do we just not feel comfortable playing him? In those big moments at the end of the game, like when evidently Mike Taylor is a coach who likes playing small. If that's the case, like, what's our plan for the rest of the game? If we can't rebound, like, there's just not much you can do. This is not a big, heavy league, the CEBL. Most teams play small, but you need to be able to rebound.
That doesn't change the fact. Yeah, that doesn't change the fact that realistically and traditionally, I mean, you look at a league like the NBA, Defensive Player of the Year is basically, it's a big man award.
Usually.
And there's, for the most part, and there's good reason for it.
It's going to be for the next 15 years for sure, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on where they put Wemby, but if they play him as a point guard, he won't be. But overall, it's a big award because having size inherently means, for the most part, you have rim protection, you have rebounding. Why do you think that if you're over 7 feet tall, there's a very good chance that you're going to be playing some sort of professional basketball? It's not because they're just inherently better athletes. They're just better at rebounding because they're way taller. Yeah. And I'm all for playing small. Believe me. I love small ball basketball. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of small ball basketball, but that doesn't change the fact that you need competent size. Yeah. If they can't play offensively, they need to be able to be a presence in the lane and be able to grab rebounds over shorter players on the defensive end and set good screens. That's quite literally it. And that's not even as important anymore because you have guards who are setting screens just as well as bigs now. But if we don't have a reliable big who can provide a consistent amount of minutes, close out games, protect the rim, rebound effectively, we're not going to win anything for the foreseeable future because at the end of the day, our offense can only be good when we actually get the ball. And right now, every time we get the ball, it's taking it out of bounds because we've just been scored on. So, it doesn't really matter. You're going to be playing catch up a lot if that's the case.
And we have a fast team that wants to play in transition. When we do get an opportunity, we look incredible in transition.
Oh, absolutely.
Guys like Ray Foreman pushing the pace. Lencat is one of the most athletic players in the league. Throws down great dunks. I don't know if I've seen him throw down an incredible dunk so far this year because he never gets to play in transition because we don't get any rebounds. It's like I don't know really what to say. I do think that, and I hate to say this because obviously the Sea Bears were such an unbelievable success last year. I think that you start to get concerned about Mike Taylor a little bit as far as how this roster was constructed. Obviously, this is an amazing team, and I'm sure a lot of that, as far as talent, I'm sure a lot of that comes down to his relationship with players. This guy's been around. He's obviously an incredible head coach, and clearly, guys love him. You could tell, like, this team will run through a brick wall for him. It just hasn't been good enough. And when you have a team that I think a lot of people think is the most talented team in the CBL, you can't really be 3-5.
No,
you just can't. And this isn't the NBA where you can maybe judge, a quarter of the way through the season, you're 20 games in. This season is 20 games long. Like we're really close. Like at the end of this week, we're going to be over halfway. We got a bunch more games. Like things need to change fast. I'm not saying, fire Mike Taylor. I'm not saying they're going to do that. But you start getting concerned about some of the decision making because, there's all kinds of concerns you can make, and all those aside, this team should be better.
Absolutely, they have the players, maybe not in the right positions though. Like as you had said, they're a very I'm gonna say top heavy team where it's all their guards. Are fantastic, but
I think our 3 best players are guards.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's great, but that's also a problem. Yeah, I mean, you need to have capable guys on the interior, and feels like we don't have it right now, and we're getting to a point where it's going to be very hard to make that happen. And the rebounding problem is huge, and it's going to be a big change needed to fix that. And I agree with what you said where I'm not saying that you need to get rid of Mike Taylor, but at this point you got to imagine it's a pretty short leash because this team should be performing to a much higher standard than they are. And that's unfortunately also the reality of just being a head coach, right? Is you're usually the first guy out the door if the team's not performing the way that they should. I mean, they're not going to, just release Teddy Allen onto the waivers because our team's not playing well.
Make no mistake, this is a super team.
Yeah.
We have built a super team for the CEBL. Like, just going through this roster, you have the two, like 1 and 2 in MVP voting last year, 2 unbelievable scorers. Yeah, Byron Mullins, guy who started like 70 NBA games, played a bunch of years in the NBA and everywhere else. JOJ, who has been one of the top scorers in several of the best leagues on the planet. A bunch of other really good CEBL experienced guys. This team is very good. The roster is really, really good, and we really should be better.
They're just not good at winning basketball games right now. That's it.
At the end of the day, I think we're going to figure this out. This team is so good. I do think Mike Taylor's a good head coach. There is simply so much talent on this team that I just cannot believe that we won't figure this out. But time is running out. We're almost halfway through the season, guys. Like, we've got to do this. This is a huge week coming up. We have a big game against the best team in the CEBL who killed us last week, the Vancouver Bandits. We played them on Wednesday. I can't remember who we're playing this weekend, but it's another good team. This league is very balanced. Everyone's good.
Yeah.
It needs to turn around fast.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much the end of my rant for the Sea Bears. We covered lots. I've just realized we're already getting close to 40 minutes in here, so we should probably move on to our last few topics before we wrap things up.
For sure. Yep. All right. To touch on, the Winnipeg Goldeyes are in an absolute heater right now.
Thank you very much to the Winnipeg Goldeyes for being the best and most enjoyable team in Winnipeg to watch right now.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
You are providing us with comfort where there is none everywhere else in the city. Huge shout out to the Winnipeg Goldeyes. Go watch some games. We will be there.
Yeah.
Go support the Winnipeg Goldeyes. They are, as of right now, far and away your best and most entertaining option. Even if you're not a big baseball fan, I promise you, they are the ones to go support.
Great game day experience. Have you the new scoreboard is phenomenal.
I haven't even seen it. I don't think live.
It's beautiful.
Maybe I have. Was it there last year?
No, it's brand new this year.
It's brand new this year. Okay, because I think I've seen it driving by when you get that really weird angle of it for a second.
Mint craft beer to Kalalit's craft beer options. Check out Unpaid. Check out the Winnipeg Goldeyes. They are the best team in Winnipeg right now.
Oh yeah.
I remember telling Scott earlier on. For those of you who don't know, every Monday we have a Winnipeg Athlete of the Week on our Instagram account at Winnipeg Sports Weekly, where we pick whoever's been the best Winnipeg Athlete of the Week. It's exactly how it sounds.
We've named it very well. We've done a very good job there.
Absolutely.
Patting ourselves on the back.
The key is in the name. And I remember telling Scott, man, I'm a little concerned that people are going to accuse us of big team bias here because the Sea Bears and Bombers are going to be so good. And maybe, I was worried maybe there won't be Goldeyes and Valor guys all year. Who knows? Well, I'll tell you so far, the Goldeyes have won the last 2. They already have 3 on the season. This episode's dropping after Monday. Tomorrow's Athlete of the Week is yet another Winnipeg Goldeyes player, Rob Emery, who has won before. R. Emery constantly makes me think of Ray Emery, even as I'm saying this right now.
Love
I'm not
Ray
even sure
Emery
if that's indeed. No, just kidding. Rob Emery. The Goldeyes they're a blast. And they're winning big right now. The bats are flying. They won, I think, 8-1 today.
I think it was 8-0.
8-0.
I think it might have been one or the other. It was a big win.
Pitching has been unbelievable. Joey Matilovich has been unbelievable. Max Murphy, back-to-back Winnipeg Athlete of the Week, came very close to winning it this week. Very, very close. Has been sensational. Goldeyes are a blast, man. It's been a good time. Absolutely great.
It's the team to see. It's inexpensive to go out and watch. It's a good time. It's in a good area. I'll be going lots, especially if things don't turn around for some of the other teams as well, right? And
and then another shout out for Valor, who lost 3-2 to Pacific last weekend. Really hard fought game though, and if you haven't checked out a Valor game yet this year. We have this Australian striker here, Jordy Swivel, who is the real deal, by the way. He's putting up
fantastic. He looks great.
Over a goal every 2 games right now for Valor. This man, I really want him to win Athlete of the Week at some point because he's been great. He keeps having really good weeks where I want to give it to him, but I'm going to give it to the best person at the end of the day. regardless of anything. And this week was another one where I'm looking at him and I want to pick him because the other person has already won before, but I just couldn't do it.
It's just not quite there, and it's too bad because Valor's also not really getting the results like.
Yeah, they haven't been winning, unfortunately, but they have been playing better.
They have.
Better.
Yeah, they do look much better overall. So
yeah, this isn't the Valor of old where it was like they were one of the worst teams in the league, and like they are, I think, standings wise right now. But this is an exciting team. There's good players on the field.
There's at least an
product.
entertaining product out there to watch, right? So even if you,
I mean,
believe me, coming from a big Bombers fan, I spent a lot of time watching the Bombers lose, but it's like they played okay enough, so you kind of still got to have some fun, right? And that's
of course,
kind of the point in which it feels like Valor's at right now. They're still not getting a lot of the results they want, but at least they're putting a pretty good product out there, and it's fun to go see them. So
it's a blast, especially if you have a chance to sit in the trench with Red River Rising. For you guys who don't know, it's kind of like the Valor Ultras section. Unbelievable atmosphere, great singing, and just some of the most welcoming people you could possibly meet. It's a great time, and Valor's been a blast. A special shout out to Valor and Jordy Swivel. Really hope you get Athlete of the Week at some point.
Oh yeah,
it's coming. He's too good.
Yeah, he's too good of a player for that. So
it's coming. But I think that's about what's happening right now in Winnipeg sports.
That is your up to date. That is your up to date week in Winnipeg sports. We're sorry for the very negative ranting for a good majority of this podcast. I think a lot of people who listen in will probably feel quite the same, though, after some of those performances with some of the major teams. Shout out to the Gold Eyes. We love you. Shout out to Valor. Keep it up is maybe what I want to say. Keep the
building.
improvement.
You guys are building something.
Sea Bears, Bombers, get it together. Get it figured out.
We believe in you.
We believe in you.
Please figure it out.
We need you to turn it around.
We love you.
Because exactly.
Like exactly. This is pure love. Like
there's
nothing more we want than for you guys to win the championship. Please, we love you so much. Please figure it out.
I just don't want the Bombers to ruin my third week in a row here, so I'm really hoping that they at least put a good product on the field against BC. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. We're already past time anyways. Thank you guys very much for listening to the third episode of the Winnipeg Sports Weekly podcast. We will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.